Sunday was a magical night in Hollywood. All the stars came out and it was full of glitz, glamour, and gratuitous nudity from John Cena. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Post Credits with Gil Garcia, where we go beyond the final scenes of the most prestigious and pretentious award shows in show business. And today we're recapping the 96th Annual Academy Awards. Last night was also the first ever Garcia family Oscar watch party. Shout out to my sisters, my brother-in-law, my nieces, my nephew, and our pup Bingo for a wonderful time. Thank you guys for hosting the last-minute party. It was a ton of fun, full of bingo, ballots, and banter, and I had a great time. Ever since I graduated from college in 2016, I wanted to put together an Oscar night, and to finally be a part of one, it was a total blast. As for today's episode, we have a lot to cover. We'll discuss the overall presentations, the pros and the cons of the show's production, the performances, the winners, the losers, and we'll compare the results to my Gilly Awards show that I recorded back in January. This show will feel a bit differently than the Gilly Awards since we'll mostly go over the results of the categories as opposed to running down the nominees. This was a historic night for the Oscars, and I can't wait to dive into what the hell happened. Now, the 96th Annual Academy Awards is a particularly interesting case study in what may have been the most difficult year for movies. Not only did the year feature the most box office failures, but we had to endure a writer's strike, the cease of manufacturing of physical media, and a large number of critical duds. Many people will point to 23 as a year of slim pickings in terms of Oscar-caliber films. Other people will say that this is a year of growth in international films, with 2 international films landing into the Best Picture category. I try not to be so pessimistic on the nominees, but I'm kind of on the side of the former. This was a year of slim pickings. Having watched over 50 films last year in theaters, I sat through some good, but a lot of garbage. And for the sake of my psyche, let's hope that 2024 is a bounce back year. Please, for the love of God, guys. I don't want to sit through any more Madame Webs. So, let's talk about the structure of today's episode. We'll be diving into the Oscars in the way that we watch the show, going through the important moments, meaning Best Picture will be discussed at the very end. And when we get to it, we'll rank the last 10 years of Best Picture winners. Now, we get into it. The show opens with Jimmy Kimmel really laying into Robert Downey Jr.'s drug addiction past. Many people took offense to this joke, but Robert was kind of a good sport to it all. From my knowledge, I think you have to clear jokes like this with the people that you're joking with so that the producers know to put the camera on the person that you're joking about. I don't know where this was a couple years ago when Chris Rock was slapped on stage by Will Smith, but I'm glad Robert Downey Jr. was a good sport about it. It's one of the reasons why everyone loves Robert Downey Jr. His acceptance of his past and his resurgence has all led up to this moment in time. It's made him the icon that he is. So, when I see people getting offended for Robert Downey Jr., I'm privy to tell them to fuck off. The jokes, yeah, they might have been harsh, but they weren't meant to criticize him, but to honor how far he's come along in his journey. But that's kind of the tinderbox of the Oscars, right? You're going to offend a lot of people. There's really no winning. The opening monologue had some good quips, and it just reminded me how Jimmy Kimmel's pedigree for this type of award show is so much better than that of Joe Coy. I do feel bad for Joe Coy, though. As popular of a comedian as he is, he was not ready to host an award show like the Golden Globes, and it clearly shows. Jimmy was much better suited for the Oscars here, and this is his 7th time hosting, so he's a natural for it. He also made this fantastic joke about Greta Gerwig not getting nominated for Best Director, criticizing the people in the room for not voting for her for Best Director. That was a pretty good one. One of the highlights of the night for me came during his opening monologue when Jimmy mentioned the cast and crew workers that worked the front lines of the writer's strike. ABC brought out its cast and crew on stage to a standing ovation from all the actors. See, it isn't just Hollywood blowing smoke up its own ass. The writer's strike was a momentous occasion for the rights of human beings heading into the future. It was a strong symbolic gesture of uniformity for the everyday grinders who don't get their spotlight or credit. What a lot of people failed to understand about the writer's strike was that it had more to do with the lesser known people getting fucked out of a job because of Hollywood executives that were planning to use AI to replace them. Most people looked at the writer's strike as a bunch of billionaires and millionaires just bitching about their job. But no, this was really a victory for the people who go grab coffee every day for the assistant director, the people who are working tirelessly through the night to build the sets and the crews. This was a gigantic moment in history. Had they have been unsuccessful, the precedent would have been set that amongst all industries of labor, that companies can get away with replacing human labor with artificial intelligence at a given notice. It was a victory for everyone across the globe whose jobs are getting threatened every day by AI. So I want to give ABC its merit. It's symbolic of everyone who's ever worked in the industry, myself included, that have grinded every fucking day to try and make it in Hollywood, that just get chewed up and spit out and are replaced by these Hollywood executives. I really loved this moment, and it was a lot bigger than what you thought it was. It was awesome. Now, fortunately, it didn't take long for us to get to the first award of the night, and that was Best Supporting Actress. Now, the results of my Oscar ballot were largely successful. I landed 15 of the 23 categories correct, supporting actress being one of them. As one of the more difficult nominations to read, in my heart of hearts, I wanted Emily Blunt to win badly. I love Emily Blunt so much. But I kind of stuck to my gut on this one, and I voted for Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. Now, ABC went with a very different style of presentation for the nominees of the major acting categories this year. Instead of having the previous winner appear and list off the nominees and winner, they brought out 5 recent winners to each represent a nominee. Each would give a brief, heartfelt message to the candidate, and then the prize would be awarded. For Best Supporting Actress, we had Rita Moreno representing America Ferrera, Mary Steenburgen for Emily Blunt, Regina King for Danielle Brooks, Jamie Lee Curtis for Jodie Foster, and Lupita Nyong'o for Divine Joy Randolph. Divine takes the first award of the night and the first Oscar of her career. Congratulations to Divine Joy Randolph. She gave a wonderful speech which brought her co-star Paul Giamatti to tears. It was awesome to see, so congratulations there. I was actually kind of worried that they were going to do this for every category, but thankfully they left it to only being for the acting nominations. The next categories were the animated segments. We had Best Animated Feature Film and Best Animated Short Film. Best Animated Short went to War Is Over, based on the Yoko Ono and John Lennon song, Happy Christmas, War Is Over, which I think a lot of people took a big disagreement with. They felt like this was kind of a pretentious victory. And it became even more pretentious when Sean Lennon had everyone in the audience scream Happy Mother's Day to Yoko Ono. Get the fuck out of here, dude. But congrats on your Oscar, I guess. Then we had Best Animated Feature Film, which gave us our very first controversial moment of the night. The controversy may not have come from the show itself, but what happened on X at the time that the winner was announced. Nearly sweeping the major award season, the favorite to win Best Animated Feature was The Boy and the Heron from Hayao Miyazaki. It's his final feature film for Studio Ghibli. Of course, the popular choice from the average moviegoer was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to be completely honest. When it comes to Across the Spider-Verse, I think it's an incredible film. It expands on the stakes of the first movie. However, I think the lack of resolution in the service of setting up a final movie is to the film's detriment. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem was actually my favorite animated film of 2023, believe it or not. I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles actually did a good job of establishing the characters in this modern set while also giving them a character arc throughout the entire film. It felt like a complete picture compared to Across the Spider-Verse, which feels like half of a big picture. When The Boy and the Heron won this past Sunday, Shameik Moore, the voice actor of Miles Morales in the Spider-Verse films, tweeted out only one word, and it was enough to set the film world ablaze. Shameik tweeted out one word, but he actually tweeted it out twice because he misspelled it the first time. He simply put robbed. I want to first apologize for going on a tangent, but what a shitty thing to say, especially since Spider-Verse won the Oscar just 5 years ago. Firstly, it shows that he likely never watched The Boy and the Heron in the first place. Secondly, the extreme lack of grace and integrity went out the window when the actor doubled down with a second apology tweet. In his fake apology, he writes, "Respect to the winners, it's true, I'm definitely a sore loser, but we didn't lose. Spider-Verse has impacted a lot of lives. We may not have been acknowledged tonight, but life goes on and beyond. Yeah, get ready." And then he uses the emoji of that guy blowing steam out of his nose. You see, there's a proper way to credit the cast, crew, and filmmakers of your own movie without showing up or tearing down the team that opposed you. He simply could have just put something like, "I want to thank everyone who went to support Spider-Verse. I'm incredibly proud of the film and the impact it has made on people all over the world. I can't wait to show you guys Beyond the Spider-Verse." Something like that would have been very professional. Even as cliche as it is, it wouldn't have appeared like a spoiled brat whining over spilled milk. It's the fact that he put the Spider-Verse has impacted a lot of lives. That sounds to me like he's deflecting the loss of this award over to just being like, "Oh, well, our film's more popular than yours anyway, so we won in the long run." This lack of accountability has inspired Spider fans to go on the offensive too. They've harassed Studio Ghibli's social media pages and people congratulating the correct film for the award. In just 3 minutes, Shamik turned the Spider-Verse franchise from the little engine that could back in 2019 to the goddamn Kansas City Chiefs. A team of entitled degenerates that whine and complain when things don't go their way. They whine to the refs and stuff. I believe that there is no doubt that Beyond the Spider-Verse will be nominated in 2026, but this was an extremely bad look for Sony, Lord and Miller, and especially for Shamik Moore. It makes me not want to root for them come that year. Thank you guys for listening to my rant. I really appreciate it. That really pissed me off, and the Spider-Verse fans pissed me off even more. Now, the show goes on a nice little run of surprises here, with American Fiction and Anatomy of a Fall winning Best Original Screenplay and Best Adapted Screenplay. I struck out on both those categories on my Oscar ballot, I'm not going to lie, but I was pleasantly happy for those films that they didn't leave empty-handed on the night. In the second most talked about moment of the night, the show segues to a hilarious bit where John Cena appears on stage nude, talking about the importance of costume design. The memes that came out of this moment were gold, and I think my favorite meme was someone that said, "Why was there an envelope floating on the stage?" That was pretty good. Now, to everyone's surprise, this is where we saw Poor Things go on a nice little run, winning 3 of its 4 total Oscars on the night. Another ballot buster. Poor Things took what I assumed was going to be the 2 most likely awards for Barbie in Best Production Design and Best Costume Design. Now, for many of the flaws that I found in Poor Things, there was an undeniable art to that movie. Each scene looked like it was ripped out of a French painting. If Barbie was to lose to one of the movies of these 3 categories, I'm glad that it was Poor Things. Yorgos Lanthimos crafted one of the most unique looking films of the year. International film went to Zone of Interest, which, if you didn't have on your Oscar ballot, you may want to improve your awareness. It was the only one of these 5 candidates that was up for Best Picture, so of course it was going to get Best International Film. I mentioned earlier how historic this Academy Awards was at the top of the show. There were at least 4 or 5 winners on this night who have been well past deserving of their first Oscar, and none more so than Robert Downey Jr. Best Supporting Actor was presented exactly like Best Supporting Actress, with 5 former winners coming on stage to present the nominees. Sam Rockwell did the honors for Robert Downey Jr., his Iron Man 2 co-star, and he won for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Christoph Waltz introduced Ryan Gosling, Ke Huy Quan for Sterling K. Brown, Tim Robbins for Robert De Niro, and Mahershala Ali for Mark Ruffalo. To no one's surprise, Robert Downey Jr. wins, and we finally get to experience his coronation. A cherry on top of an incredible career. Downey gives a speech that only he can, with his patented dry wit and self-deprecating humor. What an incredible moment this was, and I couldn't be happier for Robert. His performance as Louis Strauss in Oppenheimer also won my Gilly Award for Best Male Performance of the Year back in January. What an amazing moment, and I'm so proud of Robert Downey Jr. that we can finally call him Academy Award-winning actor Robert Downey Jr. So far, the show has moved along quite nicely. Jimmy took a backseat throughout most of the middle of the show here, and it didn't feel like it was dragging at all, leading into the technical awards with some energy and a brisk pace. Let's now talk about Best Visual Effects. For the first time in its illustrious history, Godzilla reigned king, with Godzilla -1 pulling out the upset over Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Creator, which was my choice, Oppenheimer, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Godzilla -1 already made history at the Oscars on January 23rd when it became the first film in the Godzilla franchise's 70 years to be nominated for Best Visual Effects. Now, director Takashi Yamazaki can claim the title of Japan's first ever winner of Best Visual Effects. Even more so, this is the first Godzilla film to ever win an Oscar, period. Director Yamazaki is also the winner of this particular visual effects prize, as he also served as the film's visual effects supervisor. A director winning the Best Visual Effects Academy Award has only happened once before, with Stanley Kubrick taking the honor in 1969 for 2001: A Space Odyssey. This was an awesome surprise, an amazing moment. With a small crew of visual effects artists, the team of Godzilla -1 was not only able to go toe-to-toe with the biggest special effects teams in the industry, but also came out triumphant. If you haven't seen Godzilla -1, you need to. You must see it. And if you can see it in the theaters in the biggest screen format possible, I say do it. Godzilla -1 was one of my favorite films of the year, and it was nominated for the GIL Award for Best Picture. Now, at this point, I want to talk about the musical performances. The 5 nominees for Best Original Song, as part of the tradition, would be sprinkled in between categories throughout the night. These performances were Billie Eilish and Phineas for What Was I Made For from Barbie, Ryan Gosling's I'm Just Ken, also from Barbie, John Baptiste performed It Never Went Away from American Symphony, the Osage Tribal Singers sung Wazaze, a song for my people from the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, and then Becky G did The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot. I think it was incredibly honorable for the Academy to give some notoriety to the Osage Tribal Singers for Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm sure a lot of people were confused by their inclusion into the night's performances, but it was a very respectable thing to do, and I loved seeing them on stage. But the standout performance, and the one that people will be talking about for a very long time, wasn't the winner of the Oscar, but it was I'm Just Ken by Ryan Gosling. What an incredible live performance by the entire crew here. This is a performance that got everyone on their feet, energized, and involved. Gosling and the dancers executed the moves from the film to perfection, and the crowd really, really loved it. It was, for a lot of people, the highlight of the night. It was probably my second favorite, but we'll get to what I thought was the best moment of the night in a bit. With how incredible of a performance as this was, both on stage and in the film, Ryan Gosling misses out on his first Oscar once again, while Billie Eilish picks up her second Oscar. What Was I Made For was the sole Barbie Award win for the night. A sad, somber, yet prophetic piece of music that perfectly exemplifies the inner struggles that women go through on a daily basis, that was laced throughout the themes in Barbie. What Was I Made For was the correct pick to win this award. Was it the best pick? No, I still think I'm Just Ken will leave a longer lasting impression, but this was the correct one. I would have voted for I'm Just Ken if it was me. Billie's performance on stage was excellent as well, although half of it was facing towards the orchestra behind the curtains. But when her platform finally turns around and she faces the crowd, it was a beautiful moment. Congratulations to Billie Eilish, but I still think the award should have gone to Gosling this year. I'm going to rattle off some of the middle of the pack awards. Best documentary short went to The Last Repair Shop, a good feel-good story for the people involved. They gave a phenomenal speech on stage when accepting the award, and I highly recommend that you revisit their acceptance speech when you get a chance. Go watch it on YouTube. Best documentary feature went to 20 Days in Maripol, which was the opposite when it came to the acceptance speech. This was probably the most politically charged speech of the night, and it was one that I kind of didn't want to sit through. It was such a big downer. Prophetic, but was very depressing. Best film editing went to Oppenheimer, its second award of the night. A huge deal since this was the first picture that Christopher Nolan worked with a Universal Studios-based editing crew on. Best sound which I thought was going to go to Oppenheimer, went to the Zone of Interest, surprisingly. This was the Zone of Interest's second award of the night. The film was awarded for its incredible restraint of sound instead of its volume of it. It comes out on Max in a couple weeks, and I'm definitely going to check it out. You guys should too. Best Original Score went to Ludwig Göransson, who picks up his second Oscar for Oppenheimer. He previously won Best Original Score for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. He was a shoo-in for this award, and I loved what Ludwig did with the violin and synths to make this score really pop. It gave Oppenheimer more personality and uniqueness. Best Cinematography also went to Oppenheimer. See, this is where the train started rolling for Oppenheimer on the night. You started to see them win all these little technical awards, and then it ultimately led to the big stuff. Best Live Action Short went to The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. This was the first ever Oscar for Wes Anderson. Now look, Wes's work is a bit controversial and polarizing, but I actually really love a lot of what he does. Hearing that he finally got an Oscar was a huge moment in the show for me. I just wish that he was there in person to give this speech. But way to go, Wes. Now, we get to the big four awards of the night. Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Picture. A big reason why I loved this particular Academy Awards presentation was that they got the correct winners this year. There was not a single out-of-place winner in my opinion, unlike Jamie Lee Curtis winning last year for Everything Everywhere All at Once. This show awarded the right people the right awards at the right time of their careers. We already talked about Robert Downey Jr. and Wes Anderson just now, but this next one is one that moved me to tears. For the first time in his illustrious career, we can finally refer to the man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Nolan, as an Academy Award-winning director. In what was my favorite moment of the night, my favorite director gets on stage to accept the award for Best Director, and we get this incredible picture of Steven Spielberg handing over the Oscar to Christopher. In what seems to be the passing of the torch, Chris finally gets his recognition as the premier blockbuster filmmaker working today. I've been a fan of Christopher Nolan's ever since I was 17. Memento was a film that I wrote my college thesis on. Batman Begins was my introduction to him, and I have fervently argued and defended his work on Insomnia and Interstellar countless times. My love of his work, his talent, and the way he treats his crew is beyond words. It was at this moment where I had to silence the room that I was with, just so I could hear what he had to say at the podium. My throat swelled up, I was fighting back tears, and I couldn't shake an overwhelming sense of pride and happiness for Christopher Nolan. After getting snubbed a nomination for Inception in 2010, to missing out for Dunkirk, Oppenheimer, my third favorite film of his, was the one to get him over the hump. Chris did an amazing job with an amazing cast and crew surrounding him. Even talking about this now, it's kind of making me swell up with emotions. And I want to say it one more time. Academy Award winner Christopher Nolan. Damn, that feels good. You're next, Denis Villeneuve. You're coming for that Oscar. So then we get to the two most prestigious acting awards of the night, Best Actress and Best Actor. For Best Actress, we had 5 presenters come out again. Last year's winner, Michelle Yeoh, introducing Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall. Sally Field introducing her amazing Spider-Man co-star, Emma Stone. Jennifer Lawrence for Lily Gladstone. Charlize Theron talking about Annette Bening. And Jessica Lange for Carey Mulligan. To me, this category was a no-brainer. It was clearly Emma Stone's year again. Emma was my Gilly Award winner for Best Female Performance of 2023 for Poor Things, and she very much deserved this second Oscar. I feel like her role as Bella Baxter is even more iconic and more deserving than the role she performed in La La Land, and I freaking love that movie. I understand that a lot of people are disappointed not to see Lily Gladstone take home the award, and I understand that. But I also want to point out the discrepancy of screen time as a big deciding factor of who won this award. Lily Gladstone was only in 26 minutes of the 3.5-hour runtime of Killers of the Flower Moon. Emma was nearly in every single minute of Poor Things. Emma carried the weight of that movie on her shoulders, which says a lot because I think the movie would have been god-awful if there were any other actress in this role. I think if Lily really wanted an award, she should have campaigned for Best Supporting Actress. Then she would have stood a real chance. This was Emma's year, so condolences to Lily Gladstone, but the right person won this award. Now we get to Best Actor. The 5 presenters were Nicolas Cage with a hilarious introduction to Paul Giamatti, talking about the soft contact lens that Paul had to wear in The Holdovers. Brendan Fraser introducing the amazing Jeffrey Wright. Matthew McConaughey for Bradley Cooper, accompanied by his sweet mother. Ben Kingsley for Cillian Murphy. And Forrest Whitaker for Coleman Domingo for Rustin. Now this category was tough to gauge. Each actor, Paul Giamatti and Cillian Murphy, have won each award show that they have been nominated for. So this, to me, was like seeing Hulk Hogan wearing the WWF Championship belt for 3 consecutive years, fighting Andre the Giant, who was undefeated going into WrestleMania. On my ballot, I went with my brain over my heart and chose Paul Giamatti. But thankfully, I was wrong. Cillian Murphy finally sheds the always the bridesmaid, never the bride reputation and takes home his very first Oscar. Cillian has always had great repertoire with Christopher Nolan, playing characters like Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow in the Batman films, Robert Fisher in Inception, and even having a small role in Dunkirk. But what touched me most about these 2 amazing men was a single note that Christopher Nolan wrote to Cillian right after he casted him as J. Robert Oppenheimer. Chris simply wrote to Cillian, "Dearest Cillian, finally a chance to see you lead. Love, Chris." Cillian put in a lot of work into helping Christopher Nolan become the filmmaker that he is today, and to see both men receive awards on the same night was truly powerful. This has been years in the making, and it couldn't come at a better time. Thomas Shelby is an Academy Award winner now. And for the biggest prize of the night, Best Picture. Look, I love Al Pacino. He's a goddamn legend. But this presentation was the most half-assed, confusing shit I've seen from the Academy since the Moonlight La La Land debacle in 2017. Al Pacino, at his advanced age, shows up to the microphone to award Best Picture. He is played out to the tune of The Godfather, and he looks as though he's had one too many drinks. As he's slurring the words that he's reading off the teleprompter, he not only doesn't reintroduce the nominees, which apparently was a choice by the show's producers, but he announces that Oppenheimer wins the award in the form of a question. Had it not been for the accompaniment of Ludwig Göransson's score, I think the entire auditorium would have been left looking around in confusion. He said something along the lines of, "Ooh-ah, only one could win Best Picture. And I have the envelope for that. Am I see Oppenheimer? Yes." It was so bizarre, but oddly fantastic and memorable. Al looked like he wanted to just go home at this point of the night. I don't think it takes away from Oppenheimer winning Best Picture at all. I actually think it adds to the legacy that there was a bit of a flub here. But overall, I was extremely satisfied and happy. On a night where we saw Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy, Wes Anderson, and Christopher Nolan all win their first Oscars, the night ends on a bit of a whimper because of Al Pacino. So in total, Oppenheimer claims the night with 7 total Academy Awards, with Poor Things in second with 4. The 96th Annual Academy Awards was probably my favorite presentation since I've been watching the show since 2008. So that begs the question, which Best Picture winner is the best one in that time? Let's quickly go over my rankings of the last 10 Best Picture winners before we call it a night. At number 10, I have Green Book, which won in 2019. At number 9, Coda, which took home the award in 2022. Number 8, 2021's Nomadland. At number 7, Moonlight, which we mentioned took home the award in 2017 over La La Land. Number 6, Spotlight, which won in 2016. Number 5, Birdman. Number 4, Parasite. Number 3, The Shape of Water. Number 2, Oppenheimer. And the Best Picture winner of the last 10 years, in my opinion, was Everything Everywhere All at Once for 2023. What was your favorite Best Picture winner of the past 10 years? Let me know on social media, where you can find me on X and Instagram at PCwithGIL. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel where I'll be posting more video content in the coming weeks. And make sure you rate and subscribe to the podcast feed on Spotify or Apple so you don't miss an episode. Next week, revenge gets ripped as I review the new A24 film, Love Lies Bleeding. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe and go catch a movie.